I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you please stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on our agenda tonight is a annual police report, and I believe Chief Darren Moody will be giving that to us this evening. And we will waive the 3-minute time rule for you.
I don't know if I'll need much more. Are we up?
You're on.
I think Chuck is starting our PowerPoint. We had some good news to report in 2015 and some challenges we'll face as we move forward in 2016. Well, there we go. And this is our annual report. Part of the reason it takes several months to get the annual report is because the state and federal reporting doesn't get all the factual numbers back to us until last month. So we pretty much have the report ready to go until we get those numbers, and now that we have them, we can present it forward. This is just an overview of the calls for service. The one thing to note here in the city of Shelton, we had over 10,000 calls for service, which is over 1,000 calls more than we had the prior year. Out of that 10,000 calls, only 25 of those resulted in reportable use of force. And 18 of those involved somebody under the influence of alcohol or narcotics and occurred between 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. And I think that's a pretty impressive thing to point out there, that at 10,000 calls for service with these officers, only 25 of them resulted in that. 5% of all of our calls were 911 calls. Again, calls for service about 10,200. And this gives you a breakdown of where and when they occurred. And again, it's in the annual report, and they'll get copies of that. Our SWAT and our canine teams, Lily, our canine, has revamped her training in the last year. She's now out at Tumwater on a regular basis doing regular training. And in 2015, she worked 27 cases and recovered 590 grams of methamphetamine. So that's pretty incredible for the dog. Of course, the handler had a little bit to do with that too, but we give the dog the credit. The school resource officer, Britt Denning was our school resource officer last year, handled 344 calls for service. As you can see, that's up as well. Here's our NIBRS reporting, our National Incident-Based Reporting System. The unique thing about NIBRS is it doesn't go on just one call or one incident. If we have an incident and it has several crimes involved in it, each of those gets reported. So sometimes it gets the illusion that we're reporting all of this crime, when actually one incident, it could be a car theft, a robbery, and a pursuit, all get reported as individual crimes in that through NIBRS. The positive thing we look at here is in 2015, we had an incredible drop in a few categories, and we had some increases in some that we're working on still. Our aggravated assault increased a little bit. I don't look at the percentages because with small numbers like this, the percentages look incredible. But if we had 8 more assaults than we did last year, or in 2014, we attributed most of that to domestic violence. If we look at people and property crimes in this, you can see we had 73 less burglaries in the city of Shelton in 2015 than we did in 2014. And 53 less thefts. So our property crimes, we put a big dent in them with all the stuff we did on the streets in 2015. Our drug and narcotics violations, as you can see, we had a little bit of a drop in that, but at the beginning of the year, we did a warrant sweep with the sheriff's office and some other things out there focused on some of the narcotic use, which we feel dropped most of our property crimes throughout the year. As you can see, heroin almost doubles every other drug of use in this city. Vandalism, we saw a little bit of an increase in vandalism in 2015. The good news is in 2016, we're seeing less this year than we did in 2015. As you can see, the weapons of choice are usually hands and fists and feet in any of the assaults we've had in town. Motor vehicle thefts. We put a significant dent in motor vehicle thefts in 2015. However, we're seeing an increase in 2016 as our surrounding counties in the area. Most of those, again, being from businesses. So your large parking lots are losing cars out of them. If you drive a late 90s Honda, get a club. Get one of the locks that you can put on that Honda, because typically the Hondas are the most stolen cars that we've seen this year and last year. These are the different breakdowns of the thefts we had. Most of them have been vehicle parts or theft from vehicles and shoplifting. The burglary offenses, as you can see, they put a huge dent in our residential burglaries with the work they did. The shoplifts, the commercial burglaries increased slightly, but the other burglaries dropped dramatically. And these are employees of the year for last year. We had Mark Hinton. He had more DUIs than anybody around the county last year.
You mean he arrested?
Okay, let me clarify that. Yes, he was not arrested for. He made the arrest for DUIs. And as such, we used our DUI enforcement money that we had saved up when we bought our new vehicle. We put DUI on it and gave it to the officer of the year last year. So he's driving that car around. Our reserve officer, Charles Taylor, is now a provisional officer with us, filling a spot until we get a permanent employee on. And Sarah, who creates this annual report every year, was employee of the year last year. This is some of the stats on our alarm letters, records checks. As you can see, you have your records checks increased dramatically, and the reports processed. That's quite a bit for those two young ladies up there to work on every year. I think that'll do it. So that's just a quick snapshot and overview. If I can give you just what we've noticed this year. We had less stolen cars last year and the rest were up. However, in 2016, the increases we're seeing now is motor vehicle theft. Again, I said old model Hondas are the ones that are typically being stolen. In February of 2016, this year, we took 98 more police reports on swing shift alone than we did in February of 2015. That's one shift took 100 more police reports, and that's reports. That's not just the calls for service. That can tell you how our calls for service are going and what we're seeing this year in 2016. And our calls for service have increased by 50 in the first 2 months of the year, as I wrote this one. Detectives have been clearing our backlog cases, and they've written more search warrants in 3 months than we did in all of 2015. So they're moving forward with that. So we do have some challenges we'll face, of course. MACECOM has stopped entering warrants, so now warrants have fallen on us for the court entering warrants. We have a new part-time employee that is helping us take care of the warrants and getting that taken care of. And we're moving forward on Neighborhood Watch. We have 2 recognized. The third one just called me up today, and we're looking for anybody who had or would be interested in starting a Neighborhood Watch in their neighborhoods to give us a call, and we'll be happy to come out and set it up for them. That's all I have, unless there are any questions.
Any questions for Chief?
Did you say Honda is the number one?
That's what we're seeing in this area, yes.
I have a 92 Honda that sits in front of my house. It doesn't run. Why hasn't anyone stolen it?
Probably because it doesn't run.
It's sitting there.
Most of what we're seeing is not the cars being stolen for stripped or parts or stereos, as you would typically think of. Most of them are just being used for transport. Thurston County has its own auto theft task force going on over there trying to combat what they're seeing over there. But a lot of these we're recovering either locally used as transport or over in Thurston as transport back and forth.
So are those cars just easier to steal, or what is the reason?
That's my understanding. I haven't tried, but my understanding is they're easier to steal than your typical car.
Okay.
Well, I would say that from people I talk to, you're doing a great job with your department, and we thank you very much, and hope that things keep moving in a positive trend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is our commission weekly reports, and so Commissioner Moore, do you have something to report on?
I do. Last Friday, I went on the annual tour with the Peninsula Regional Transportation Planning Organization, and we rotate between the 4 counties that my group is made up of. And so this year, the tour was in Kitsap County, and part of the fun of going on this is going to see the projects that are planned or underway or have been recently completed in the counties. And we started by going to an amazing stormwater retrofit project, which was actually a community park in Manchester. It was really attractive, really interesting. I have some pictures. And then we went on and we saw a new transit center, and we went and saw a new bridge, which will be opened within the next few months. So one of the things that I was encouraged by, it's fun to see all of this new infrastructure being added, but also it seems that it isn't unusual for these projects to take way, way, way longer than you anticipate. And so it was a good opportunity for me to see what other counties are doing, and I really enjoyed it. It was great. Got to go on Kitsap's foot ferry between Bremerton and Port Orchard. So I did that last Friday. Today I had a meeting with, a briefing meeting with the county commissioners regarding the fund allocation for our housing dollars. And so that was a good opportunity to talk with them, talk about ideas for what the city can do, what the county can do as we're moving towards providing more housing. And so it's good. We had $455,000 to distribute, and as difficult as it was, we chose the areas that we thought it could do the most good. It was a very diverse group, so it was very rewarding to do that, and nice to be invited to report with the county commissioners. So this week, I will be attending a conference, the Association of Washington Cities Conference, and that's it.
Thank you. Ms. McDowell?
This week I also will be attending the conference in Everett, the AWC conference. I'll be there, leaving tomorrow, be back Friday.
And tomorrow afternoon, I will be doing a ribbon cutting for a business relocation. On Wednesday through Friday, I also will be attending the Association of Washington Cities annual conference, and looking forward to sharing ideas with other legislators and councilmen across the state of Washington. So that completes our weekly commission reports. Next is a general public comment period, and we are open to receive those names.
And first up is Mr. Randy Lewis.
Hi, everybody. Randy Lewis. I wanted to talk about this debt thing for a moment. I've got a copy of what Pete had given out recently with his about $50 million. I also have a document that Commissioner McDowell had asked for from one of the financial staff. And that number, if I'm reading it right, is like 51.3 million. So in the same week, we get a request from two city staff members, gave two different numbers for the debt amount. So, and then there's a famous nearly $60 million number that Kathy Byerly gave to the mayor. And by the way, someone else told me that Kathy Byerly had told him that she told him that the debt was nearly $60 million as well. So, but here's the issue as I see it. The issue is not what the city defines as debt on the balance sheet for financial reporting purposes. The issue is, what's the proper debt number to use for analytical and planning purposes? The financial statement debt doesn't necessarily reflect economic reality. For example, suppose I have a mortgage. I owe some money on that. That's a debt. Suppose Gary, the loan shark, loans me $100,000. Well, that money is not on my quote official balance sheet, but it's nevertheless, that is real debt. If I don't pay Gary, pretty soon his goons are going to come visit me. So the decision maker wants to know, what is the actual economic debt that has to be managed? What is reality? And in my humble opinion, that is a question Kathy Byerly tried to answer. In my opinion, if you're losing the balance sheet and not including everything, not only are you not thinking outside the box, you're trapped in the box. I thought that was a cool saying, so I threw it in there. The citizens expect transparency. I thought Pete's document was a great start because it was a documented thing where it says, this is what I think the debt is, this is the components of it, this is where I got it, and so forth. And in my opinion, the commission should direct the new finance guy, and by guy I mean man or a woman, to flesh out a more detailed and complete version of a display of what Shelton owes, and then update it periodically, monthly, quarterly, whatever you want. And the commission needs to show, in my opinion, here's a complete list of money Shelton owes, at which point in time is the debt valued, and state what the calculation method is. I mean, I'll go through all the boring details, but, for example, is a bond mark to market, mark to book? Is my time up?
It is. You can finish your statement if you have a few sentences.
I don't. I'm allowed to come up in a later session and finish, right?
Yeah, if you want to do it, yeah, we allow
Yeah,
people
because
to
it's
come
going to
back.
it's going to take much longer.
Very good. Thank you for your
Sir,
time.
I'll be back later.
All right, we have a second opinion later on.
Next is Mr. Michael.
Mike Olson. I too wanted to address the debt document that Pete gave. I really appreciate that he took that on and did that. My big point is for well over 4 years, the mayor has stated $60 to $63 million in debt. And he's used this for his own political gain. For one, during the campaign, both him and Commissioner McDowell heavily relied on this as a tactic to, I feel, scare the citizens. Now it's been proven that those are erroneous numbers, that he was off by, give the benefit of the doubt, $8 or $10 million, which is a pretty significant amount. I also am disturbed that you continue to use these numbers to do poor leadership in specifically the well situation. You've banked on that we can't borrow any money because we have this enormous $60 million debt. Well, you're off quite a bit. So I would encourage you to quit using these numbers for a political reason and start leading the city in the way we need to be led, in that you've been presented with a sweetheart of a deal to drill a well that your professional staff, your Department of Health, I think even the city administrator agrees that this is a much needed thing. I haven't heard anybody but you and Commissioner McDowell in the public and one other person that came to a public meeting say that this was not needed. I think you're not listening to the public. You're relying once again on your erroneous information that you've continued to spread. And I would like to see you, for lack of a better terms, let's drop what the debt is. I mean, it's huge. We all know that. But let's look at what we get for it and what we need to get for it coming in the future. We've spent that money wisely. There's a lot of cities who have corruption corruption situations going on. Nobody's ever accused the city of Shelton or past commissioners of any type of irregularities. So this money has been well spent. Paving streets, new sewer lines, basin projects, this building we're standing in, the library, the city fire hall. Debt is not good, but when it's used wisely, it's for the benefit of the citizens. And I think that it's time to stop slamming the $60 million is wrong and start relying on leadership and your staff to help you do that, because I think that you could lead the city if you quit doing the opposite of the fear-mongering you've continued to do, to not do the right things with that money. That's it.
Okay, do you have anybody else? Next, we will move forward with the consent agenda. Are we ready for that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
can we please have a reading of the consent agenda?
We can. Consent agenda, vouchers numbered 11868 through 11946 in the amount of $241,436.33. Payroll warrants numbered 2152 through 2298 and 11843 through 11866 in the amount of $693,309.60. Commission meeting minutes from study session of May 31st, 2016, business meeting of June 6th, 2016, and study session of June 13th, 2016.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I will,
Go ahead.
okay. I make a motion to accept the consent agenda. Yeah.
I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda passes. Under old business, we have an SR3 Park and Ride Entryway Corridor Enhancement Project. And that's going to be presented to us by our city engineer, Mike Michael.
Actually, Steve and I've been tag teaming it, and I think Steve's a little bit more prepared to present this.
It doesn't matter to me, either one.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I briefed the commission last week on the status of the SR3 Park and Ride project. At the time, we described the need to have a supplemental to our contract. There was a very arduous discussion with Simpson over the need to secure additional property, the Boot Hill site, if you will. And in the end, we were, as I reported last time, unable to find a way to meet the Uniform Act policies without a appraisal. So we went back and we've reviewed the cost to provide this appraisal so we can move forward. At the time, I reported that we believed the cost of this collective work would be in the realm of something that the city administrator could sign. And when it all came in, it included really three components: the appraisal and the appraisal report itself, the need to do a boundary line adjustment, which is a part of the recording of the restructuring of the properties, and the time the consultant would need to upgrade the plans to meet current WashDOT specs. Collectively, those items exceeded the amount of money that either staff or the city administrator signed for. So we asked the consultant to prepare a supplemental, which is what you have before you. These funds are part of the grant that we have for both projects, the entryway and the park and ride. I believe in this case the monies will fall within the park and ride side of that. And that will reduce the amount of money we have to actually build the project. But again, staff really worked hard to try to avoid this cost. We couldn't get there, and that's where we are today. Our request is, if you find it favorable, to sign this tonight so that we can just shorten the amount of time we have in trying to move this project forward. Our goal is to, again, go out to bid on this project this year. So another week would be saved if we could get that approval and move forward tonight.
Any questions or comments? I have a comment. This is a project that we've been talking about in the city of Shelton for at least 25 years. And I think you guys have done a phenomenal job in trying to get over the hump, and I have no problem in signing and giving you the extra help you need to get this project to move forward. So, if there's any other comments, it appears that at this time, we need to have a public comment on this proposed action item. So if anybody from the public wants to talk about this, they are free to do that at this time. If you're not, then what we'll do is move forward and see if we concur with this motion. We need to make a motion, I believe. So I would request a motion.
Okay, I move that we authorize the mayor to sign the supplemental agreement, number 4, adding the additional scope of work to the contract with KPFF to allow the completion of design and permitting as needed for the SR3 Park and Ride and Shelton's Point Entryway Corridor project, and authorize the city administrator to make any budget modifications necessary. Good job.
There you go.
Good job.
Is there a second? Is that-
I second it.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a motion and a second to approve this request. And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. Thank you very much. Next is an item under new business, and that's talking about our Railroad Avenue Corridor Design Consultant. And again, this is Mr. Steve Goins going to present that to us.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. As some background information, last year the city was the beneficiary of a grant for our economic stimulus that was led by Senator Shelton. We received some of that money, and there was 4 projects identified that we utilized that money for. One of those was a study of the Railroad Avenue corridor. The overarching objective was to try to design some enhancements along Railroad Avenue, which is a prime gateway into the community. We believe that not only would this improve our mobility for both cars and pedestrians, it would improve the aesthetics as you come into town. We had an opportunity to secure some right-of-way, which has long been an issue in trying to make those improvements, so the timing was very good. We received some proposals through our RFQ request, and I believe I included in the packet one of those, which was the Studio KPG submittal. We received 5 very good submittals. It was actually a pretty tough decision, but in the end, we felt that Studio KPG would give us the best opportunity to go after grant funding once we had a design in place. And they really feel like, conversely, that they're a good match for this project. It's the type of thing they do well, so we think we made a good selection. Our request is to have the commission authorize the mayor to execute the contract and commence this work. And the good news is we have grant funding to pay for this work, and we have the time to get the work accomplished. It's just one step in that process to move this forward. I think that concludes my report.
Any questions or comments concerning this?
I like it when he says we have the money.
Oh, yeah, that's what beneficial.
I was really impressed by their proposal and their projects that they gave us examples of, and I'm very happy to move forward with this, so I support this very much. And I'm ready to make a motion if we need a motion.
I don't think we need one. What I'm seeing here is we're just going to go ahead and put this on the consent agenda if we concur. Is that correct, Mr. Goins?
Yes, we can place this on the consent agenda.
Okay.
So, let's place this on the consent agenda for June 27, 2016, authorizing the mayor to sign and the city administrator to make any necessary budget modifications. Thank you. Next, item number 2 is Mason Transit Authority's Low-Impact Development Parking Lot Grant Agreement. And at this time, it'll be either Mike Michael or Steve Goins talking to it.
That one would be me.
There you go, either one.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. This project's kind of been a long time coming. This was a grant that we submitted about a year ago on behalf of it for a demonstration project in the old Radix dentist office over here next to the Community Transit Center. We were given the grant about 9 months ago, and it's taken this long for Department of Ecology to finish the agreement process and get us a final agreement for signature. That's what we have before you this evening is that agreement. There was noted late today one small, final tweak that about 10 sets of eyes had missed in there. We identified a main street in part of the description that we don't have. So I have a clean draft with that correction that just showed up about an hour ago. So when this is all done and approved, we'll actually sign the final version. Basically, this is a no cost. The city is passing through this funding to MTA with the support of Mason Conservation District doing the design work. The little bit of administrative time that primarily will fall on me to manage this on behalf of everybody is eligible cost to be reimbursed 100%. And so this will be another nice little cleanup piece of work downtown. And essentially, we're asking for the commission to accept this grant, to authorize myself to sign the final documents necessary, and the city administrator make any budget modifications that might come out of it.
Any questions or comments?
I like it.
Looks good. Okay, so what we'll do is concur to agree with staff's request to place the MTA parking lot grant agreement on the consent agenda for June 27, 2016, authorizing the city engineer to sign and the city administrator to make the necessary budget modification. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is it's a contract, and it's concerning our Director for Financial Services, and we're going to be presented this to us by our interim city administrator, Pete Fletcher.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Commissioner, first of all, let me emphasize that this particular action you're requested to pass on tonight has not quite met the 3-touch standard, it's only met 2. And I'm asking for that action based on the fact that it needs to move forward rapidly so that we can have the process well underway. And the new city administrator who is targeted to come on board August 1st, that's a soft state, finish the process and hire the first department head of that person's tenure. This is a contract for professional services with Proffman Incorporated. You're familiar with Proffman, having recently completed the city administrative search process and another professional workforce. It calls for advertising and pre-selection and advice and consultation along the way. And the prices included for this professional services as what page did I mark? $23,500 for that recruitment process for the position of finance director. So I'm certainly happy to respond to the questions. I ask for your indulgence in only having brought this body once previously instead of twice previously. We'd like to move ahead with the project.
Thank you, Pete. Before we do that, this is an item that requires us to allow the public to comment on the proposed action item. If there's anybody here that would like to talk about this subject, now is your opportunity. If not, what we'll do is talk about it amongst ourselves and make a decision. So if there's any questions or comments concerning this, I know I've been touched on it about 5 times. I mean, we have been talking about it before you were even here, kind of, so I think it's not an unusual request. So I feel comfortable moving forward with this. Any other questions or comments?
No.
So it appears you, and you're new to the 3-touch thing, kind of like you came from wherever, and so that's, you're getting used to how we do it. Was this your fault or our fault?
Thank you. I guess I can say I've only touched the item once before.
Yeah, right. We were touching it all over the place. So it looks like all we have to do is concur on this, and so we do concur that this motion to approve the contract with Proffman authorizing the city administrator sign is, we concur that that's a good idea at this time. All right. Any administration reports?
Mayor?
Yes. Motion? We can certainly do that. Let's take a look and see. It says here, request a motion to approve. Thank you, Leslie Ann. You came through again. There you go. Okay, so we need a motion.
Let's see if I can do this now. I make a motion to get a Proffman contract for the Director of Financial Services. Authorizing.
The administrator.
What?
Authorizing.
Oh,
the city
authorizing the city administrator to sign.
administrator. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. And any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good job. Thank you, Leslie Ann. Now, Pete, did you have an administration report that you wanted to bring forward?
No.
Well, there you go. There's another general public comment period that we would enter into at this time. And so, Randy, did you want to come and speak for the remainder of your subject?
I do, thank you.
Okay.
As good as Pete's paper was, I would challenge the notion that it's proof that the debt's only $50 million. My perception is that the numbers included are sort of a narrow regulatory definition of debt. Well, if I'm a manager or a mayor asking Kathy Barley, what's the debt? He doesn't care about that. And Kathy's not going to answer that way. She's going to say, what is the economic debt that's Shelton's on the hook for? So let's start with Pete's debt of $49.99 million. Okay, I dug out a few more. I dug out like 3 others that I would consider debt from an economic point of view. Maybe there's more. I don't know. One is construction commitments. That's money. That's money on things you're doing, like the Lake Boulevard thing. that's committed but not yet paid. That's $2.95 million. Compensated absences. I asked Kathy Barley a few months ago, we met with her, and I asked her, have you quantified these compensated absences? And she said, well, yes, we have. Are they funded? No, we don't have the money. That's a debt. That number is about $530,000. Okay, and the last thing, and I'm going to really struggle to cut this short without getting into it, but there's something called net pension liabilities and other retiree benefits. That's $4.75 million. It's not reflected in Pete's note. So, what is a net pension liability? You know, another fancy word for that is unfunded actuarial accrued liability. Those are payments that have already been earned by Shelton employees out in the future, just as bond payments are due. And that has a value. And the payments that you owe that are not only funded is called the net pension liability. That is a debt. And if you look in the Shelton annual report, there's something called GASB, which I think is like Government Accounting Standards Board, something like that. So what is that? Well, that's basically the group of nerds that decide what the accounting reporting rules are for government entities. The analogous private sector group is called FASB. GASB says, here's what you need to do to report and whatever. And they have new rules, and they have rules constantly, and one of the new rules is called GASB 68. Now, what is that? Well, that was a reaction to some of the controversy that you've all read about, the abuse of the public pensions around there. And if I'm reading it right, under GASB 68, in theory, going forward, I think to 2015, the net pension liability debt must show up on the balance sheet. No longer will government entities be able to bury that inside the footnotes. You'll be able to find it in the footnote, but it's not in the balance sheet. And this is an example of a debt that may not be, quote, official debt in a narrow governmental regulation point of view, but for planning and analysis, if you're really interested in the economic debt, that's the number you need to include. And even GASB, because of the abuse, they said, enough abuse. You have to put that on your balance sheet going forward. It has to be recognized. So at least it's public. So given what I've been talking about, the total economic debt Shelton is laboring under, if you add up my numbers, is $58.2 million. Commissioner McDowell's told me, unless she changes her story, that she saw a document she believes Kathy Barley prepared showing that a 58 point something. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. So if you're saying the debt is nearly $60 million, in my opinion, that's a reasonable thing to say, and it's a correct thing to say. It's information that, and if you want to be transparent, you send that information out to the public. And this is information the decision makers need for planning analysis and for managing the debt. I'll be done pretty quick.
Thank you.
But, no, I have one final comment.
Okay.
There's more. There's a second provision of GASB. Shelton is, for other Shelton employees, what I was talking about was mainly firemen and policemen. For the main employees, and you guys can know more about it than I do, but there's something called PERS, that is a state pension plan, of which Shelton is a part. Now, they have an unfunded liability. Shelton owns a portion of that liability. Well, in the past, that has not been calculated or defined, but the second part of GASB 68 says that number needs to be quantified for the subsidiary entities of a state and put in the financial statement. No longer can cities hide their unfunded liability for their state multi-employer plan. They're part of it. No longer can they hide that number at the state level. So I'm guessing why Kathy or somebody said nearly 60 million. If that number had been available, the debt might have been 60 million, maybe even more. So anyway.
Thank you for your comment.
That's my comment. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, and this is still a public comment period. Anyone else would like to speak, they're more than welcome to do that. Okay, administration, final touches, and I would turn this over to our city administrator at this time.
There are three, Mayor. First of all, I want to remind you that the auctions from staff on well number 1 in terms of investments in the community water system are coming to you on July 5. I think you'll find those look interesting. 2, I'll call attention just once again to your looking ahead schedule, which gives you an other upcoming items. And last, beyond that, I have no announcements or final touches.
All right, any other? Yes.
Next week, a representative from the steering committee of the downtown visioning project would like to come forward and do a brief presentation. I believe that will be one of the co-chairs, likely Nani Bacala. That should be next Monday.
Okay, any other administration final touches? Seeing none, our next meeting will be Monday, June 27th, 2016 at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. This meeting is adjourned.